Welcome along to the Matchbook NFL podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, joined by Judah, Drew, and Sam, as always. Guys, it was a pretty decent week. Drew, I'm going to start with you. I have to say, you hit the ball out of the park last week.
It was a good one. It was a fun week. I let everybody down taking the Chiefs. Should listen to Judah. The Packers showed up, but otherwise, yeah, really fun week. And I like the way that it after a long season of pulling our hair out over the quality of the product, which I think was fair criticism. And after, a couple of games and a couple of high profile games where the refs were a little bit too involved and we've had half of the quarterbacks be injured, we actually have a situation now where the final 5 weeks of the season are going to be massively exciting and entertaining, and huge, win swing probability, championship equity probability is going to be sloshing all around week in, week out here, particularly in the AFC, where it is very, very tough to see how this breaks. I know that every data, all the signal of the data we have at this point points to like Miami being clearly the best team of who's remaining there. But I worry a little bit that, their stats are padded a hair by quality of opponent, particularly these last few weeks. And so they're going to get a true test coming down the home stretch. But it is really quite fun to see how this is shaping up for the home stretch. And a lot of good opportunities to capitalize on this, I think.
Yeah, Sam, it's an exciting time of year, but it does feel the more we get on, the more we know the markets, they can only overreact so much. There's still equity to be had and some value to be had.
Yeah, I think there's lots of value. I think this week in particular, we'll have to see next week if there is value or not. But I think there's a lot of value to be had this week anyway. And it just feels like there's big game after big game after big game at the moment, which is a really good place to be after maybe a couple of weeks that weren't as exciting earlier in the season.
And Judah, it feels again like same thing to Sam. The more we go on in this NFL season, the more we know. And again, I talked about it last week, the wild card weekend. I'm already excited about those matchups. And you and Drew going through the NFC and agreeing on the Rams, it's big prices. There's excitement, and hopefully some of our listeners got some of that equity as well.
Yeah, the Rams, I echo Drew there. I do hope, but honestly, I don't know if I agree with the we know more at the end of. I feel like the AFC was a lot more of a clear picture earlier in the season, where it was like, oh, it's probably going to be one of like the Chiefs or Bills and like maybe some Bengals, maybe some Dolphins. Like now, like who knows? Like there's like zero certainty there. All of a sudden, the NFC probably has like maybe the 3 best teams in the league. It's just kind of a wild, and I think like teams like the Rams and Packers like really have some shots at making some noise. I feel like this is one of the more wide open races, probably since I've been following football, and I'm quite excited.
Yeah, it's an exciting time of the season. Before we get started, if you are watching on YouTube video, do hit that like button and subscribe completely for free. And if you're listening on the podcast, a 5-star review would be much appreciated. And we're going to start with 4 games here. We got the Rams at the Ravens, the Lions at the Bears, Bills at the Chiefs, and Sunday Night Football, Eagles at Cowboys. We'll start with the Rams at Ravens. Take a look at the betting that we currently have on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. Ravens 131 favorites, Rams 3.9. Point spread sees Rams get a 7-point head start, and 40.5 is the total. Drew, I have to start with you. They're your Rams all of a sudden. What was it, the Ramway, or what was
the Ramley? Yes, I forgot my Cooper Cup jersey. Man, I gotta dig that out of the closet. Next week. Yeah, if the Rams win this week, it's going to be big. It's going to be for real. And I say that I have hopefulness that they can win this week. I think they match up fairly well against the Ravens. I think the running attack, especially that the Rams have, which was muted against the Browns, and there was a lot to take away from that game. I took 2 watches to really kind of fully synthesize what that was, but I thought honestly that was kind of more like a B- performance from the Rams in that win, and it really was just the one kind of key mistake that Joe Flacco made, throwing the pick from his own end zone, that really kind of really swung that game clearly in the direction of the Rams. But I will give the Rams a ton of credit. They did a pretty masterful job with an offensive line that's been kicked around a lot this year. It's been not really fairly well, very well respected. That they did a nice job, I thought, of, kind of using the running backs and the pass protection to keep Myles Garrett from being a massive disruptor and giving Stafford time. Like, that was the angle that everyone betting Browns was kind of counting on, which was the front four getting pressure. And it never really materialized. Stafford was clean, and that really allowed him to kind of, get some high leverage conversions. And I think that sets up even better against the Ravens. Like, the offensive line here should be able to get their job done without much help, which then unlocks the tight end in the passing attack. It unlocks Kyron Williams to be more effective on the ground here. And I think you can play a little bit of ball control if you can scheme your offense away from Roquan Smith. There are linebackers that I want to attack in this, off ball unit here. Kyle Hamilton and Roquan Smith are pretty clearly all pros by my numbers so far this season. I think if you can find ways to attack the defense outside of those two players, then you can find some success. I think Marlon Humphrey is coming back. People have kind of made a lot of that this week with kind of the excitement of the Ravens coming off of their bye. But, this a true CB1 who doesn't have a ton of speed still is a little bit of a tough ask for him to kind of meet, kind of cover the diverse set of wide receivers that the Rams are bringing into this one. The quality of play that we've seen from Stafford so far this season, I think, speaks to the Rams having a shot as a 7-point dog. One of the fun angles that we kind of picked on in the middle of the season, which was the sort of what's different about this market than what we expected in the preseason, I think is fun to kind of bring back here. So the Ravens, if you took these two teams, you said, well, who's better than we thought they were going to be? It's got to be the Rams, pretty obviously. Like, I don't think many people expected this defense to be top half. I don't think many people expect this Rams offense to be top 10. And yet here they are. And the Ravens they are who we thought they were. In fact, I would even argue that the offense may be a little underwhelming compared to what we thought the ceiling was. And certainly they don't have Mark Andrews, so they're not quite as dynamic. And yet the preseason look ahead here was 5, and now we're at 7. So somehow, some way, the Ravens have drifted up with wins against, divisional opponents and, some beating the life out of a couple of NFC frauds in the Lions and the Seahawks that we now kind of know. And I think this is a much tougher test. I don't think the Ravens should be favored by 7. I would make this much, much shorter. I think they're a good play on the money line. And the money line, I'm not going to go bananas and put them in, every tier of betting on this show this week, because clearly the Ravens have an extra week to prepare. They're getting healthier. Lamar Jackson is still a very tough matchup. But I would say that if the Rams get this win, that does unlock a lot of potential for them to get the 6th seed in the NFC. With a loss here, they're basically squarely looking at a 7 or out. So it would be a pretty huge win probability swing for them in the long run if they can get this win. So let's go Rams.
Yeah, Drew is locked in on the Rams. Sam, you're in agreement on this. Talk to us a little bit about the Rams, and like Drew's looking at them from an anti-post outright perspective as well on maybe some NFC futures. So what's your overall thoughts on that? And then looking into this game specifically, a bit on maybe that preseason look ahead about 5 points, and now we're looking at 7. Is that about right for you, or do you feel there's a bit of value in backing the Rams plus 7?
Rams plus 7 has to be the play here. I think there's so much value in this because, like Drew said, I just don't see how they're 7-point favorites, the Ravens, that is. This Rams team, since the bye, since Stafford has finally been kind of fully healthy again, just like a totally different beast on offense. I mean, they were impressive at the start of the season. Let's not forget as well. Is it 90 points the last 3 games? That's pretty impressive scoring. Even if, admittedly, 2 of those teams are the Cardinals and the Seahawks, that's still very impressive. The ground game is, and generally always has been, pretty good since Sean McVay's been there. And Kyron Williams, his return seems like a massive boost. I mean, admittedly, before that, Royce Freeman was kind of looking really good, which I think tells you so much about the system that they have there. But I mean, Kyron Williams, 2 games, 316 scrimmage yards. That's incredible, really. And I'm taking the Rams plus 7. I think it's by far the best value. I'm also going to have a couple of quid on just Rams money line as well. I think this is definitely a spot where the Ravens could be beaten. I think the Ravens, I'm not going to say they're overrated. I don't think that's totally fair. I think the defense is fantastic, and they do have a lot of very interesting pieces on offense, but without Mark Andrews, I think that's going to be a big loss. And ultimately, whilst they're not hugely similar defenses, I think we saw last week the Rams kind of did very well against the Browns, who are a team that incredibly good against the pass, and maybe not quite as good against the run. I think we're going to see something similar here in the Ravens defense. And I think there's the Rams have the ability to kind of beat you in the air, on the ground. I think they're a really intriguing team for me going forward into the postseason, because I don't really know if I truly trust any team in the NFL right now. I'd say the Niners are the ones that I trust the most, but I think it's wide open, as the guys said earlier. And for me, the Rams are the team that they're kind of coming up the inside, to take a sort of racing analogy. And I think they could pip some teams to the post too.
Yeah, Judah, you're ultimately playing the over here. What made you stay away from Rams +7?
Well, a couple of things. I feel like it's kind of funny. I was the Ravens seller for a while, maybe a Rams buyer.
Here you are.
Here
Yeah,
I
this
am.
is. I don't want to hear this. Give me none of this. None of this. Ravens might be good talk. No. This is not the heel turn we wanted this morning, Judah.
I tend to want to back really Matthew Stafford in spots where he kind of has a major situational advantage, and like I still think he's going to be able to score, and I think that all the points that Drew outlined are actually very valid, and would rather have me take the over here, which is that like if they could kind of mitigate the Cleveland Browns pass rush, there's little reason to think they won't be able to do the same at the Ravens. The Browns, by every metric, are going to be top 1 or top 2 in pressure rate and quick pressure rate. Those are kind of like 10 to 15 for the Ravens. I'm a little bit concerned about the wide receiver injuries. Cooper Kupp does not look particularly healthy. I assume Puka Nacua is fine. I don't think his shoulder is going to affect his ability to, separate and move his. I feel like it's a lower body thing that really matters. But the Ravens, are going to score against the Rams. I have this as a bottom defense, and I mean with the exception of that Chargers game and the Steelers one from earlier this year, this is a team that's consistently scoring 30 points. They have an extremely high floor, especially kind of with their ground game. I'm much less worried about the Mark Andrews injury. Odell Beckham really, as of late, has come on. If you look at his separation and his play after the catch, it looks a lot more like the Odell of old than we've kind of seen in recent weeks. They have a bunch of really good weapons. I have this chart where if you look at the kind of like average separation a receiver is generating, you can like take away scrambles also. Lamar Jackson actually has the most open receivers of any quarterback in the NFL. Yes, Mark Andrews is good at that. I don't think that's going to make such a huge impact on the rest of the offense. And ultimately, like I think the Rams are going to score, but 7 points also represents real points in a game, and it would not shock me to kind of see the Ravens play from ahead, where they go out to a lead, can lean on their ground game, which is exactly what they've been, doing for many years. And it's exactly the sort of context where my fears about the Rams can be realized, which is that like if you put Stafford in a bunch of obvious passing downs, maybe this is exactly where the Ravens defense can kind of swarm you, and show the effects of like why they're being priced as a 7-point favorite, as a dominant defense. But ultimately, I think both teams are going to score. I think 40.5 gives a little bit too much respect to the Ravens defense, considering how good the Rams offense is. And the Ravens are going to score against this Rams team. The question is whether the Rams are going to be able to keep up.
That's all fair. I'm really struggling to come up with like a fair price on Rams D right now. When you look at EPA per play type of stuff for defense, it's important in my opinion to screen out turnovers, because turnovers, when in the context of EPA, I think it's important to recognize that a turnover is like it's such a massive swing that it can kind of cloud some stuff. And if you look at like the last 8 weeks of the season, by the way, it's also important in my opinion when you're looking at defense EPA per play, look at a bigger sample, right? Defense is noisier. Like if you're just cherry picking 4 weeks of defense, it's going to tell you something that's more like this is who they played, not like how that unit is performing, right? And I look at the last 8 weeks because the Rams defense has had highs and lows, particularly in the earlier part of the season. They were real wild, but they've kind of settled into a pretty solid performance here. And again, like week 16 to 13, so this is the last 8 weeks of NFL action, excluding turnovers. They are number 5 in terms of EPA per play defense, which is crazy to me. And I don't recall feeling that way watching the games. Like this unit is playing that well. Like they're playing surprisingly well. Like definitely, impressing to the good to a degree. But the pass defense in particular is, kind of up there in the rare air right now with the likes of the Ravens, the Jets, and the Dolphins, which is kind of interesting. If this young unit of relative nobodies can perform that well against the Ravens this week, then, I think that absolutely gives the Rams a chance. The Cooper Cup point that Judah made is the last thing I wanted to really quickly address, which is he definitely is not right. This is probably like if you made me bet, I would say we've seen the best of Cooper Cup already, and that whatever kind of long-term injury stuff he's dealing with is going to impact his performance. He's more of a decoy than anything out there. In fact, when they were targeting him in the Browns game, I was like, no, throw it to Puka, throw it to Atwell, give it to Demarcus Robinson. Demarcus Robinson had juice out there, that's kind of the way I felt every time he was targeted, and so I don't think that they're going to be hugely impacted in terms of like there's a vacuum of no one making plays. I mean, Puka Nacua is just flat out awesome. Tutu Atwell has speed, and I was actually frankly impressed with kind of the crisp route running that Skoranek had last week, and Demarcus Robinson as well. Like those guys, everybody's really well coached, which I absolutely love about the Rams. And the other kind of reason to back them in the futures market is there's only 5 active quarterbacks who've won the Super Bowl, guys, and Matt Stafford is one of them. Aaron Rodgers is one of them. He's not coming back, in my opinion. Joe Flacco is one of them. I don't know that I guess I was impressed by him last week relative to my expectation, but I still don't know that I would trust him to make any noise in the playoffs. And then you have, of course, Pat Mahomes and Russell Wilson, who might not make the playoffs. So, it's very realistic that we could get to playoffs, and there are 2 quarterbacks who have won Super Bowls in the mix, and one of them is Pat Mahomes and one of them is Matt Stafford. And experience matters in the playoffs. I will die on that hill. I think that kind of is the other reason to have any kind of hope that the Rams could do something special. So we'll see.
Fine, I'll back the Rams for the NFC. You keep saying
it. This is the week, right? This is really the week, because if they win this game, then you potentially lock in a matchup with the 3 seed. I don't know that we know for sure that the 3 seed is going to be the Lions, which we'll get to in a minute. But if it is, that if you're in the Final 4 in the NFC, then you got a chance. It's going to be tough. But
yeah, it is indeed. And even this game's going to be tough. Rams +7 for Drew and Sam. I think Judah sort of won me over a bit with the over, maybe playing a bit more safe and maybe having a small bet either on the Rams money line or maybe playing those future markets. We will move to the second game, Lions at Bears. Just Drew and Judah with a selection here. Take a look at the betting first, then go to you, Judah. Lions 163 favorites on the Matchbook betting exchange. Bears 2.5. We'll get to that price in a sec. Point spread sees Bears get a 3-point head start, and the total for this is 39.5. Judah, for you, Bears at 2.5. You like that as a bet here?
Yeah, I think kind of 2 angles here. Number one, and I imagine this is what Drew is going to be talking about, which is that this Chicago defense is maybe the most mispriced unit in the market right now. This is a team which the market's pricing at probably 24th, 25th best defense. By my numbers, they're like top 10. Their run defense has been incredible as they've gotten healthy. The pass defense has been much better as well. You break up the splits however you want to do it. Full season, they're like 65th percentile. Over the last 7 weeks, they're like 85th percentile. And the Lions are so reliant on kind of getting their ground game going. And if they're going into the wall that is the Bears run defense, sure, they can win. But I think more likely that the team that's kind of been a top 3 unit on run defense will maintain its strong play. That's kind of the defensive side of things. But on offense, the Bears match up perfectly with the Lions, which is they did not do this last week, much to my chagrin, where they were kind of just throwing these screen passes to get around the blitz heavy, Brian Flores scheme. But this is a team that loves to attack downfield and kind of use Fields and his legs to kind of elevate this ground game. And Justin Fields, his best skill, passing the football is his ability to throw deep. One of the most accurate and, generating EPA on deep passes. That is his strongest skill set. He's been one of the best in the league there. And the Lions have been absolutely dreadful over the last 7-8 weeks. We've talked about this for a while now. We, had this on Thanksgiving. This is a team that's allowing the highest depth of target by a full yard. They're bleeding explosive plays on defense. The run defense has not been particularly good as of late. I expected the Bears to kind of have success in this matchup, which perfectly aligns with kind of the weaknesses of the Lions. I would have loved if this was, this game opened around like 5.5. It's already been bet down, which I think is the right side. But still, I do think there is value in a Bears team that is really mispriced on defense and matches up perfectly.
Okay, still juice in that price being bet down into 3, but money line is the play for Judah. Drew, I presume you're under similar lines with that Bears defense.
I am. I would rate them right now top 10 pretty clearly. Their run defense is the best in the NFL, in my opinion. And their run defense did, they held up quite well for about 3 quarters against the Lions a handful of weeks ago. And then they just kind of ran out of gas and led up to pretty, unfortunate scoring drives at the death there to lose that game. But I thought they'd bounce back fairly well next time out. And honestly, the performance, I don't want to say the win against the Vikings was fluky. I think that was honestly the Bears defense might be even better than we think. They'd left how many? I've lost count now. Maybe 4 pick sixes on the field in the last 3 weeks. That's kind of crazy. The data is telling you they're good, and they're not even kind of fully capitalizing on their opportunities, which is wild. So yeah, Bears defense, I think being, and oh, by the way, this being bear weather, I think is kind of important to note. The total has gotten absolutely annihilated here. It is down in the 40.5 range for good reason. It is going to be gross in Soldier Field. This opened up at 45, got bet up to 46, and then it's just been one-way traffic to the under as people have digested the fact that there are potentially 20 to 30 mile an hour winds. And then they have thought through the idea of, wait, there's going to be winds and it's going to be wet, maybe even snow, just sleet. It's just going to be gross. And oh yeah, by the way, Jared Goff has 8-inch hands. Okay, this is potentially the exact recipe for the worst of Jared Goff. This could go really sideways for the Lions here. The injury that I think matters the most in this game is Frank Ragnow. He is relatively key for the rushing success of the Lions, and he is questionable right now with the injury he sustained against the Saints. And if you there are probably plenty of people who are like, did you watch the Lions game? Did you watch the Packers game? You're really going to play an under? With this Lions defense, they let the Saints back in when they had no business, being in that game at all. And I would say, okay, that's fine. But this is still conditions that I think will somewhat throttle the Bears offense as well. Bears probably try to get this done with a lot of ground and pound and a lot of Fields misdirection, Fields on the ground, I would expect. And yeah, you can definitely make the Lions pay that way, but that's kind of the strength of their defense, if there is a strength. And so I'm opting for an under here just because I think this is probably the perfect opportunity to just, lean into gross weather game and, lean on a defense that can keep the best offense in the game in check. And then what do you do with the side here? I agree there's value on the Bears. I make the price shorter than the money line for the Bears. But if the Lions lose this game, all of a sudden the NFC North, which was long thought to have been decided, is potentially wide open. And what I mean by that is the Lions have a loss on their schedule coming up against the Cowboys. And then they have 2 games against the Vikings, one of which is on the road. A loss against the Bears and a loss against the Cowboys combined with the loss of either of those 2 Minnesota games. And then all of a sudden, the Packers control their own destiny in the NFC North. And if you compound sort of the money line prices of those two, at least the way I make the numbers, you compound the money line prices of Lions losing to the Bears, losing to the Cowboys, losing one of those two games to the Vikings, with the Packers beating the Vikings second last week of the season. I get about 11.5 to 1 for the Packers to win the NFC North. And I think there was 20s to 1s floating around out there yesterday. I think that's a fun way to try to kind of get a little bit of higher upside potential here of the Lions losing this game. A lot of people have already hit this as well, but if the Lions kind of lose their grip on the NFC North, then Dan Campbell loses his grip on Coach of the Year. And I think that opens it up for either one of the two AFC South surprises, or Matt LaFleur to steal that award. So a lot of fun ways to attack the potential Lions collapse down the stretch here. When you're at this time of the season and your defense is performing as poorly as the Lions, you are an absolute circle in red, and like there is a lot to be concerned about. And there are a couple of teams that fall into that category, and the Lions are at the top of the list.
Okay, write down those notes on the outrights. Some fascinating stuff on the NFC, and do check out the Super Bowl outright market on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. Quick line, Drew, just before we go. So you mentioned 40.5. The line's now 39.5 on Matchbook. What would you play that down to?
I think anything lower than 37.5 would be a pass for me. This has 20 to 7 Bears. I'll put it at 10. Yeah, 20 to 17 Bears. Sorry,
I tell you, if the Bears win, and look, there's a lot that can happen. So there's a lot going inside the matches that we're covering, and the two games we're covering next are arguably as big as it gets. Really, you got Bills and Chiefs, just for the pure lovers of the sport. Since Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes burst on the scene, it's Bills 2.28 underdogs against the Chiefs, who are 172 favorites at home. Chiefs minus 2.5, 192, and then the total is 47.5. Sam, I mean, this is what football's all about, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the one I think everyone's looking forward to this weekend. Like Eagles Cowboys is going to be an amazing game, but this is potentially just going to be an absolutely wild shootout. So we've seen great games between these teams before, and I really can't wait. Although the last few times we've seen these teams meet, we haven't seen them coming into the games 2 and 3 in their last 5 games, and I think that's the big difference here, is two teams that are kind of struggling to kind of reaffirm what their real identity is, I guess. And that's probably the most interesting thing here, and it's the reason why I've gone for backing the Bills on the money line, really. There's clearly issues with both teams, but I would say the Bills' issues are generally probably more down to individual errors, and sometimes Josh Allen maybe trying a little bit too hard, playing a bit too much hero ball, rather than kind of maybe some slightly wider issues that I'd say potentially are impacting the Chiefs. Obviously, a kind of thing that really kind of makes me lean into this a bit more is in the Bills' 6 defeats, every single one of them has been within 6 points, so they're not getting blown out. They're always within touching distance. They're always in games, and I do still look at this offense. They're, I think, 5th in points per game. They are putting up big numbers pretty much every week, 27.3 average, which is about 5 points per game higher than the Chiefs, which is quite a lot. I don't know this for sure, but I imagine that would be the lowest the Chiefs have had at this period in the season since Patrick Mahomes has been the starter there. Again, I need citation for that, but I kind of look at this and I just think the Bills are, I'm ultimately looking for where I'm going to put my money. And I think with the Bills being the underdogs, at least with the bookies, I think that's where the value is. So I would take the money line just to kind of squeeze that little bit more value. And ultimately home advantage, we talk about that with the Chiefs quite a lot, but the last 2 years, the Bills have gone into Arrowhead and come out with the win in the regular season. So I don't know if that is maybe the advantage we think of it. So I feel really confident in this, which is probably setting myself up for a fail down the line. But yeah.
Well, the worst part is you might have two people agreeing with you shortly. Judah, like the Bills are off a bye here, and I know Chiefs are off a really poor defeat on a Sunday Night Football with the Packers. I know you put them up, the Packers, so fair play and all that, but this is Mahomes at home, Kansas City, laying 2.5. Were you tempted at all before you came down on selection?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's precisely what's driving this price. And that's kind of what I want to fade. I think there are two things that can be true at the same time. One is that the Chiefs, if we're taking a forward view, are probably still the kind of like best team in the AFC if looking at the potential of what can happen, just because Mahomes is such an alien and is, I think, so far and away the best quarterback in football. That has just such an advantage. But it is also equally true that right now they're not playing that way. And if you just look at break up the splits however you want, the Bills kind of come out better from a fundamentals perspective in terms of their ability to move the ball. I think kind of the main issues that at least I thought early in the season with the Bills were that they're not going to have the secondary weapons behind Stephon Diggs to be successful. And really that's true of the Chiefs right now, who, despite having basically the same supporting cast, at least at wide receiver, I think probably a little bit better. Rashee Rice, who's playing the same amount as Juju Smith-Schuster, is better than Smith-Schuster was last year, yet Kelsey's probably taken a step back. Whatever it might be, the Chiefs' offense is not the same. However you want to slice it, their play-in structure has not been as good. And this is as simple as the Bills have outperformed them. I mean, it's a big play from my numbers. I don't think there's any particular matchup that has me going one way or another. I don't think matchups matter that much, to be quite frank, with both of these quarterbacks. If anything, if the Chiefs defense is kind of getting, a couple of points on the spread here because they've been good. Number one, they have not been particularly good recently. They're on their fourth string middle linebacker. Number two, defenses I don't think matter that much when you're facing a quarterback like Josh Allen, who can scramble and do all of the things to kind of mitigate the effects of defense. At the end of the day, the Bills are a better team by my numbers. The Chiefs, I think a lot of this pricing is Mahomes at home. How could the Chiefs not be favorites? But at the end of the day, right now in this current moment, and we're betting on right now in this current moment, the Bills are the better team.
Yeah, Drew, one thing we haven't really mentioned is the need for the Bills to win here, at least not win out their schedule, but maybe they can only afford one or two more slip-ups. So motivation-wise, is that any sort of factor here? And I know the Chiefs will always want to beat the Bills, but they're pretty safe in their division overall. Two-win lead, I think, over the Broncos.
Yeah, hard to imagine a team that like the Bills would need more motivation to go out to give you their best against the Chiefs, considering the history between these teams. But yeah, I'm sure the Bills kind of are now incentivized to whatever tendency breakers, whatever wrinkles, whatever Joe Brady had up his sleeve to make this offense look and feel different, I would expect to be implemented off of bye week against the Chiefs. Yeah, there should be some X factors for the Bills offense, but like Judah kind of alluded to, I don't think they're really going to matter because the Bills could probably run vanilla and succeed against this Chiefs defense right now. The Chiefs defense is trending very hard in the wrong direction. My bet last week on the Chiefs over the Packers was largely influenced by the fact that you had Spagnuolo with I thought was an elite pass defense up against a young quarterback, and potentially that being an opportunity to really kind of force a step backwards from Jordan Love, and that was not the case. The offensive line for the Packers did a magnificent job of neutralizing the pass rush, and any kind of blitz packages that Spagnuolo brought just really kind of landed with a thud. The Chiefs have a number of guys out there on defense right now who are just zeros, and it's a problem and it's a concern because as you look at the resume of the Chiefs, they've largely gotten to this point in the season even in contention for a 1 seed because of the performance of the defense, and if that's regressing, then they are in deep trouble because, again, as Judah mentioned, like the number 2 wide receiver for the Bills in Gabe Davis is a huge disappointment. He would probably be wide receiver 1 for the Chiefs. I would even say that you could argue Khalil Shakir would be an upgrade over what the Chiefs have going right now at wide receiver. Like, those are huge problems. There is a decent chance that Kincaid outperforms Kelsey in this game. I don't know what's going on with Kelsey, but he is not the same dynamic player that I remember from years past where you can just press the easy button and Kelsey gets you the first down, gets you the touchdown when you need it. Like, Mahomes is kind of out there doing it with, a cast of characters that is just leaves you wanting week in, week out. And I don't know that gets fixed on the fly. Meanwhile, speaking of getting fixed, it looks like the Bills have mostly fixed the defense. Like, this isn't the unit that we expected at the start of the season with all the wily vets and Milano and Daquan Jones and Trey White, where they could literally lock you down and win either way, offense or defense. But the defense that kind of got absolutely abused and embarrassed through the middle portion of the season is, they were learning, they're getting better, they're improving. The coaching staff is developing these young players, and so that they know their roles and responsibilities, and they're performing well right now. Like in the last 8 weeks, the Bills defense looks perfectly fine by my numbers. Last 4 weeks, they're actually outperforming the Chiefs defense notably. And this is all like excluding the fact that they're not really generating turnovers. And, for whatever it's worth, Mahomes has been a lot looser with the ball this year as he's trying to force things, make things happen with his wide receivers that can't separate. So this is a mismatch, and it's in favor of the Bills. I'm surprised the market is not shortening here. We're looking at 2.5s right now still, as there has been very tepid enthusiasm to back Buffalo that I am surprised by. I thought this was going to be one-way traffic. All three of us here obviously feel Bills are the superior team and are the bet in this game. I'm interested to see how the market participants who come in late bet this game. But in basically every facet of the game right now, I think the Bills are better. And I'm surprised that they're not taking a little bit more steam here. Bills money line is a fun bet. Bills alts are a fun bet. And actually, like, I can't get especially large stakes on like the super alts these days, so I don't really play them that often. But this does have whiffs of like the Bills coming out of the bye and just thumping this Chiefs team. Like those whiffs are there. And if you're saying, well, that's never happened in the Pat Mahomes era, it happened against the Broncos this week and this year. And I know that Mahomes was sick in that game, but like this entire Chiefs team has like whiffs of like some of those bad Brady teams where they just had Rasheed Caldwell running around trying to catch passes, and Jabbar Gaffney. Like this is kind of what you're working with. And even if you're an elite quarterback, if you have a fifth percentile skill position group working with you, then it's not going to look pretty. And I think that's basically where they're at right now. And yes, I know they were a correctly called pass interference away from even tying, maybe even beating the Packers, but I think that's obscuring the broader concern about this Chiefs team overall. And I'm not hitting like the emergency button on the Chiefs like I would with a couple other teams, notably the Jaguars and the Eagles and the Lions. But certainly the Chiefs defense kind of being down there in the mix right now over the last 8 weeks with the Seahawks and the Bengals is not a good thing. So definitely there is a potential for the Chiefs to bounce back after this game and, finish hot with the easy schedule. But I think the Bills can generate some momentum, win this game, which would set up just a absolutely spectacular matchup next week against the Cowboys, who are obviously in a much better state right now than the Chiefs.
Okay, how often do we get a team steam on this podcast? I think the last time was the Bills at the Eagles, which basically won. I thought we were on the right side. 228. Let's hope for nothing the same. But Drew talking himself into some alternative handicaps, which you can bet on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. So do check them out. Closer to kickoff, really good liquidity in there, and you can get big stakes on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. So Eagles at Cowboys. It doesn't get any easier, guys. Eagles at Cowboys, Sunday Night Football. This is a massive game for a variety of reasons. Division conference all the way up into potential Super Bowl champions here. Point spread sees Eagles get a 3.5 head start in Dallas, and the total is 52. Drew, will come back to you just because you've talked about these totals before, and if it was this a 47 or 48, it would be an automatic over. But then obviously it seems the market has caught on a small bit. I know it's in Dallas, so it's a bit more exciting, but 52 points seems a lot then when you're looking at the total. For example.
That's a massive number. I can't exactly remember, but you think you have to go back to week 3, Chargers, Vikings, to come up with a 53-point total in the NFL this season. But it's warranted. I think if anything, if there's any unit that lets you down and doesn't get this total home, it's probably the Eagles offense. There is a pretty clear market adjustment based on one result last week where, the Eagles were at a rest disadvantage against a team that was playing for a lot. And I don't think that any kind of, reflection on last week's Eagles game is especially fair for like who they are, what they are long-term, outside of the fact that as expected, the Eagles defense with their linebacking core and injuries and just regression of the secondary players, they're beatable through the air. And Jalen Hurts is one-dimensional right now. Like, those, I think, are the fair takeaways. But you have a lot of the same situation here with Eagles Cowboys, where the Cowboys have extra time to prepare. The Cowboys have seen this team once. The Cowboys should have beaten this team once. And I think that is kind of pushed this out to 3.5, where this is now probably Eagles or pass. And as I look at the Eagles defensive numbers and I think about the rest disadvantage, which matters a ton this time of year, I'm pretty clearly in the pass category. Eagles were playing very, very close margin games against high leverage teams going on the last 6 weeks, it feels like. And that's now obviously has had a toll in their overall, fatigue and ability to perform. So at 3.5, I think you have to consider the Eagles, but I ultimately passed. And with the total at 53, I think it's also a pass. If you want to just key on Cowboys team total, that's a fun way to play this, because I think just like last week, if there's one thing you could have counted on, it was the Niners offense was going to get theirs against this Eagles defense. And I think the Cowboys offense will get theirs against this Eagles defense. It's just a matter of Eagles answering. And that's a huge question mark right now with the health and just kind of general predictability of the Eagles offense. I will say there is too much being made of the Hurts injury and the Eagles offense in just the global NFL media landscape in general. The idea of sitting Hurts right now and letting him get healthy, I think, is pretty foolish. You clearly need to have a high, capture variance in this game, get a win, and then the rest of the season, the final 4 weeks, you're playing Seattle, New York, Giants, Cardinals, and then the Giants again, and then presumably you'll have a bye. So it's there's plenty of time to let Jalen Hurts get right physically before you have to make a playoff run. So I don't really see much urgency in trying to rest him now. But the points about the slippage in the Eagles offense, I think, are very fairly being captured broadly in media coverage. But that they match up fairly well against the Cowboys defense. We know that from the first time they matched up. So, I could see this definitely breaking in the direction of the Eagles. I think the Cowboys are still a little bit of a paper tiger. I mean, the fact that they gave up 1 million points to the Seahawks should tell you that much. It'll be a fun game either way. I didn't bet it though.
Yeah. Drew, I felt like as you were going on there, you were trying to talk yourself into it. Someone who has talked themselves into backing the Eagles, but again, doesn't really want to, is Sam Farley. So Sam, take away your thoughts on this game. And you look, in fairness, you called the Niners on the alternative handicaps spot on last week. Insane result, really. But yeah, coming into this week, you do feel the Eagles are overpriced. Whether you really want to back it or not is another thing.
Yeah, so this is, full disclosure, I would love the Cowboys to win the division. Actually, is that even possible now?
Yeah, you need the Eagles to lose one more, though.
It's not going to happen. But I'd love to see the Cowboys just have a good run. I think it'd be really good for the NFL in general. But I've been saying for a while, I think the Eagles are maybe not quite as good as the record suggested, and that this month would be a kind of deciding point for how we view them going into the playoffs. And I think that's generally been found to be true. I think they've actually achieved maybe slightly more than I thought. They beat the Chiefs quite easily, beat the Bills by hook or by crook, and obviously last week was not a particularly good result for them. But I think there's been too much of an overreaction by the market based on what we saw in particular last week, to what we kind of have in front of us as a team. And I know that the Cowboys, I think they were leading at the half when they played earlier in the year. They were better for 3/4 of the game. They just couldn't kind of quite get over the line. But I do just think, are they that good that they warrant being kind of relatively strong favourites against a team that beat them last time out? I'm not totally sure on that, especially when the last 2 weeks they've let Geno Smith and Sam Howell throw for 600 plus yards between them. And this is we know it's a good defense. We know that, but I don't think they're unbeatable by any stretch of the imagination. I think if Jalen Hurts has a good performance, I think it could be a really good opportunity to see Devonta Smith and AJ Brown have quite big games. And it's more here. This isn't that I want the Eagles to win. It isn't that I necessarily think they're definitely going to win. But I think when it comes to actually looking at the odds here, they are the ones that are priced kind of the least correctly, I would say, in terms of being a little bit overpriced. So I would kind of just put my money with them for that reason.
Okay, yeah, Judah, no bet here, so quick line or two on the game, and then we can move on to you for any other bets.
Yeah, I think this game is probably priced appropriately, maybe a slight lean to the Eagles as it gets on the other side of 3. I think all the things Drew mentioned are true. We didn't actually learn that much new about the Eagles. We knew the pass defense was kind of bad. I think there's a lot of just like this game is also very misleading. Like if the Eagles convert their field goals into touchdowns early in the game, which like nothing substantively really changed. This is an entirely different game. If they rule Brandon Ayuk's first touchdown a drop and there's a little wiggle, this is a totally different game. I think the results are kind of masking a lot of the fundamentals at play. I don't think there's much new. The Eagles are good. The Cowboys are peaking. I think that the Eagles actually match up fine, assuming they can kind of get past the Cowboys pass rush, which is an assumption. But ultimately, I think this is probably priced appropriately. The Cowboys are the certainly better offense right now, but it's an ultimate pass for me.
Okay. Yeah, looking forward to this game. It will be one for the Monday morning YouTube highlights in the UK and Ireland.
Real quick on
Yes,
to Drew's
go.
point. I didn't really thought about that much about the first quarter and really early second quarter kind of being so impactful because the Eagles obviously want to play a certain style of football, and a 14-point lead definitely, or 11-point lead definitely helps them. I felt like the key takeaway I had watching it was the defense knew they were out of gas. They pass rush went bananas in the first quarter, was hugely impactful, and then they ran out of gas, and then the rest was kind of history. And I don't know that a week necessarily fixes being tired and playing an elite offense every week over the balance of 5 weeks. We'll do that to a defense, especially one that not very good to begin with, maybe. So yeah, I think I agree. The takeaways for anyone who's kind of bearing the Eagles base, I guess really what this sets up last week, what that sets up is probably a potential misprice when there's a playoff rematch between Philly and San Fran, right?
Yeah, there'll definitely be an overreaction to that, and that could be the time to get them. Those 2 field goals could have proved costly for the Eagles. I feel by the time we get to this match, Drew will have backed the Eagles. Trust me.
It's Sunday night standalone game. It's gonna be pretty. Yeah, it's gonna be.
Yeah, you'll be watching it. You'll need something for
I'll
your
be watching
live
it.
stream. Judah, take it away. Any other bets? The Niners laying 10.5. Again, I said this to Drew a few weeks ago. Judah, you rarely back these big handicaps, so I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like 2 or 3 weeks ago, whenever Thanksgiving was, I was talking about, building the Niners out to 13.5. We were joking about the pricing of like what this game might be at home. But ultimately, I think this is kind of a very similar to what we said a couple of weeks ago. And the Niners front run. That's what they do when they win with margin. They match up really well against the Seahawks, whose offensive line has struggled. The defense can't stop a nosebleed. I mean, like the Niners are going to be scoring a lot. You want to be backing Geno Smith in spots where you are confident that his offensive line is going to hold up. I don't think that's the case against the Niners. And ultimately, when the Niners win, they win big. I'm more than happy to kind of take that big handicap in this spot.
I've never heard stop a nosebleed. I find them quite hard to stop. Judah, but I get the point you were trying to make. Sorry, maybe it's an Irish thing. It hasn't really reached our shores. That's
and it's you stop a nosebleed with tissue. It's a very it's a very easy way to deal with that.
Yeah, no, it's fair. I'll take the L on that one. Sam, Packers. I mean, impressive win. Judah called it spot on, but look, Drew mentioned the late call, but I thought they were superb for most of the game against the Chiefs.
They were.
Yeah, they're really good, and I think Jordan Love. It's weird. He started the season so well.
Well, he's your mate, Sam. By the way, he's your mate. You started the Jordan Love train, so off you go and revel in it.
No, but the thing is, I did say. I think I literally said last week or the week before that I was fully off the Love train, so I can't. I can't just get back on the train. But it's strange. He kind of had that spell, sort of week 3 to probably week 8, maybe. That was a bit kind of poor, but since then he just looks so much better. Last 5 games, 4 wins. He's thrown 11 touchdowns in that time frame. 6 just in the past 2 weeks alone. His quarterback ratings over 100 in 4 of those 5 games, obviously the wins. And I just think they're the far better team here. Now, the kind of big thing that worries me is the potential weather. I literally just had a look just to check the kind of latest, and it looks like there could be sort of 20-mile-an-hour winds, and I don't really want to take part in anything that involves wind like that. So this is very much a kind of wait till Sunday, see what you can find out online about the weather, and then kind of play it from there. But I think if the weather is kind of remotely passable, that he's going to be in a position where Jordan Love can kind of do what he does best and throw the ball, then I think we're going to see the Packers win this quite heavily. I'm taking the current line of 6.5, but I'd probably take it all the way up to 9.5, to be honest. I really don't trust this Giants team, and I think the Packers will, now they've kind of got the bit between their teeth, they have a chance at a postseason. I think we're going to see something pretty impressive from them if the weather conditions allow it.
Okay, yeah, we'll leave that note in the Matchbook Insights column to wait for the weather, and maybe Sam might drop me a one-liner on a Sunday, and if I'm feeling it, I will update the Insights Matchbook for those watching for those bet recaps on Sundays. I know they're very popular. Drew, to any other bets, so go to them back to back. I mean, there's lots to talk about with the Bengals, their great win against the Jags, the Colts. I mean, that game was insane. So a lot of talking points. But
first of all, very, very brave of Sam to take on Tommy DeVito, who has earned the starting job in New York. Okay. But no, any other bets, I'm going to go number 1 with Cincinnati money line against Indianapolis for a couple reasons. Breaking down Bengals Jags is fun. That was a really good game. And people in the comments asking which other teams do you have circled in red? The Jaguars. Like number 1 circled in red right now. Not only is their quarterback hurt, but they can't run the ball, and their defense is wildly suspect. Like, this defense is super duper overrated based on who they played when they played them. And over the last handful of weeks, other than a couple of highlights from Josh Allen in the pass rush, they have been very gettable. So Jags are in trouble to the tune where Jake Browning got him good and got him repeatedly. But I think the major takeaway is was that real? Right? Was what you saw with Jake Browning on Monday night, is that repeatable? And I would lean yes. They weren't really asking him to do high degree of difficulty stuff. They weren't really asking him to work outside of structure. They gave him relatively straightforward looks and well schemed offense. They have a fully healthy set of wide receivers now, and I think the Colts pass defense is definitely a hair overrated. The Colts, they're on a 4-game win streak. The quarterbacks they have played on this win streak are not spectacular whatsoever. And not to say that Jake Browning is spectacular, but congratulations on beating Bryce Young, Mac Jones, Baker Mayfield, and Will Levis. Nice work, guys. Good 4-game win streak. They're doing it with smoke and mirrors. Shane Steichen deserves Coach of the Year consideration for winning with Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew is a walking turnover. Like, that guy has so many turnover-worthy plays. I can barely wrap my head around how did that not get caught? How did that not get caught? Like, what is, usually when a quarterback makes a risky play and gets away with it, like, they kind of they tack into a little bit more conservative for a couple plays. Not Gardner Minshew. He's right back out there slinging it, putting it up for grabs again, like he is determined to turn it over on certain downs. All that said, I think the Bengals defense is still somewhat fraudulent, but I think the offense is good enough to get the Colts in this particular spot. I don't think at home with a fully healthy offense outside of the quarterback position, the Bengals ought to be dogs to the Colts. So give me the Bengals in that one. Only a little nervous about that game in terms of game state, right? Like, if the Colts are ahead by fluke, then they could definitely run the ball effectively on the Bengals and play a little bit of keep away. But that said, I think the Bengals are still the bet. And then I played over in the Bucs-Falcons game. The entire NFL landscape this week and pricing totals is understanding weather. There are weather games in like 5 cities. One of those cities is not Atlanta, as this game is being played in a dome. The Bucs wide receiving core is healthy and playing very effectively right now. The Bucs pass protection is very good, and the Falcons defense is going to be missing AJ Terrell and doesn't really have much of a pass rush going outside of Jesse Bates. It's kind of a bad defense overall right now. So I think the Bucs are going to be able to get theirs in this one. I think that's going to force the Falcons into a little bit more aggressiveness as the Falcons basically play their way into a playoff spot with the win here. So, high stakes for and high flying offense, I think, in this contest in the Dome over 39 is the play. Bucs, by the way, I'm not expecting a fully healthy linebacking core. I think White and David remain out. Jamel Dean remain out. Like those guys all matter. And the Bucs defense is pretty questionable as far as I can tell you. Like, yeah, the run defense is good, but you can have those guys through the air. So I think we're going to get a little bit different type of game than the market is expecting there. And over 39 is my favorite total of the week.
Okay, let's go best long shots record. And they're running at the bottom of the screen. Drew 7-4, absolutely flying it. Judah 6 out of 6 plus 125. But I won't repeat what I said to producer Ryan when I saw your best long shot selection earlier. And I know it's 3.35, so well capable of happening. It's just the sheer shock of seeing this team or backing this team or even wanting to back this team at any price.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that the tank might be on in New England, but the players I think are still playing for jobs, especially Bailey Zappi, who's now quarterbacking them. Yeah, I'm going to take the Patriots on the money line here. A couple of things kind of, I guess, the theses behind this bet. Number one, if you just look at how these teams have played in terms of their ability to move the ball, all of these sorts of things, almost exactly kind of what piqued my interest in the Packers-Chiefs, is that the Patriots and Steelers are exactly in the same spot. Fundamentally, both on offense and defense have kind of been at the same level, and that's over a pretty large sample. That's area number one. Number two is the Patriots' deep passing game this is an anomaly that is insane to me. They've completed 7 out of 41 passes. I actually think Bailey Zappi's probably a little bit better than Mac Jones deep. And it's not as if you look at like their accuracy numbers or like their PFF grades, kind of any of those sort of stats, all of those kind of say this team should be like 25th best, 24th, whatever, kind of still a bottom offense, but like not the dead last production they've had by a wide margin, completing like 7 of these passes, which is like 9% lower than the second closest team. And that's going to matter against the Steelers defense, which really gives up a lot of explosive plays. There might be some weather here, but yes, I kind of like to play these sorts of like regression type angles over the course of a season and not necessarily one game, but it is totally not sustainable. The Patriots' lack of success given their kind of underlying play. And this is exactly the matchup in which you could take advantage. That's kind of the thing that really pushes this to the level of a bet, in addition to the fact that like fundamentally these teams are kind of the same. It's a little bit of concern that like the Steelers offense is actually a lot better now that they kind of punted Matt Canada to the sun. But ultimately, I still think the Patriots defense has been pretty good. The offense has been, sure, they're not scoring points, and it looks really ugly, but that's exactly what's driving this pricing. And if you kind of look at the underlying play, they've been just as good on offense as the Steelers. Give me the long odds here with the Patriots.
You weren't joking when you said you wanted to cover this game on Monday, Judah. So
I actually was. And,
I know you were.
Little did I know. It would come with some conviction, apparently.
Yeah. We'll talk about the total off air maybe, and I might just throw one liner in the Matchbook Insights column for anyone that's interested in the off air chat. Sam, Eagles -2.5. We've covered it, but take it away. You're on board.
Yeah. So just super quickly, all the reasons I mentioned earlier, but I kind of think if I'm going back the Eagles, I may as well back them to kind of win by admittedly a small margin. I think 2.5 points kind of gives me an extra kind of bump onto my return. With the bet, so it's kind of just as simple as that, just a way to eke out a bit extra money on an Eagles win.
Yeah, decent price to be fair. 2.8, similar price 3.15. The Jets money line versus the Texans. I like the Texans, Drew. I like what they're doing there. So it's going to take a lot for me to make this jump and get on board with the Jets. So take it away.
Yeah, people are going to think this is a bit. Sam and I have agreed too much on today's show. So going against him here with the Jets money line. No, it is always funny filling out the sheet because you go top to bottom, and it's always interesting. If you go third and filling out the sheet, you get to see what everybody else picks. But I didn't see that what the best bet was, because sorry for spoiling it. Spoiler alert.
True. Spoiler.
Yeah, no, I like a lot of dogs to cover this week. Actually, you know what, Sam? It doesn't matter. Like, the magic is over. The Tomlin voodoo wore off at the same time as my long shot voodoo wore off. In fact, it was the same week. I don't think it was the same game, but it was the same week.
Yeah.
So the dream is, the magic is over. I can get covers, but not wins. Jets money line I like as a cover a lot. I played them at 6. I think this is a very, very sneaky bad matchup for the Texans. Not only are the Texans coming into this game with a little bit of a beat up offensive line and an absence of Tank Dell, the Jets defense is by far one of their toughest tests of the season, if not clearly their toughest test. And the conditions are going to be absolutely gross. Like, this is probably the most difficult conditions CJ Stroud will play in, with the weakest supporting cast against the toughest defense. You stew all that together and you add in the fact that the mighty Zach Wilson will be returning, and we got ourselves the recipe for an upset here. Now, I will be completely candid with the viewing audience. I staked the Texans to win the South pretty aggressively when I thought there was a very realistic likelihood that Trevor Lawrence's knee injury was going to impact the Jaguars 4 or 5 weeks ago. And then the Jags promptly beat the Titans and the Texans and, seemingly ran away with the AFC South. I still think there's, scope and space for the Texans to run them down. But in a small degree, playing the Jets on the handicap, taking them on the money line here is a little bit of a buying out of that bet. So I think the Texans lose here. It's going to be very tough for them to win the AFC South. And actually, this is just kind of an annoying week because I think the Jags almost certainly lose to the Browns. So it's just an absolutely brutal matchup for them in terms of their offense, with CJ beat hard against the Browns pass rush, but without a tackle. But this would be the kind of week you would expect to see either the Colts or the Texans try to close that gap. And I think both Texans and Colts are live to get beat. So Jets money line for me because of the Jets defense, because of the weather, and because of the Texans injuries.
Okay, a bit of hope for you at the end there, Sam, with the bias perhaps from Drew, unconscious bias. Take it away with your best bet. What is it, Sam?
Well, you'll be surprised to know I've gone for the Texans minus 5.5 points.
Good man.
I love this Texans team, man. I just love watching them play. And I'll be honest, the fact Drew's got against me, when he does a long shot and it goes against my best bet, it generally only ends one way. So I'm probably going to have to go on Matchbook as soon as this is done and get myself on the Jets there money line. But I actually think the Texans will hunt down the Jags in the division. If I'm honest with you, I think they're going to win out, and I think the Jags are probably going to lose 2 games, at least. But anyway, I think they're going to be coming into this. They are going to be smelling blood. They know that division is absolutely wide open right now. And I look at the Jets. I think, look, you're right. Defense is really good. They're unfortunately on the field far more than they should be because of the offense, but the defense is good. The conditions, they are a concern. The Tank Dell injury, I think it's a huge shame for the team and for us as kind of fans watching them. But I think CJ Stroud is legitimately so good that he is almost at that level that I can't believe I'm saying this for a rookie, but he's a quarterback that can kind of, I think we're going to see him being able to win with whatever weapons he has. I'm not putting him anywhere near the Mahomes category. Don't for a second think I am, but I think in the same way that some of these truly elite quarterbacks can kind of win no matter who's on the field, I think Stroud will be recognized as somebody who can do that, if not now, but probably in the next season or two. And ultimately, they're a team that I think are just going to get the job done. The Dolphins and Bills, 2 very good offenses, better offenses than the Texans, admittedly, scored 32 and I think 34 points against the Jets in the past 3 weeks. Falcons only 13 last week, but that's an anemic offense, just some terrible coaching. And ultimately, the Jets, there's this whole circus that's going on at the moment. Aaron Rodgers seemingly on some sort of one-man crusade to prove that he's stronger than nature. Zach Wilson, I mean, God knows what's true and what isn't there regards to whether he wants to play or not. Robert Saleh said that it's all kind of a load of BS and that he really does love football and wants to be playing. We're going to see about that. But I'm sorry, they're so bad they've had to get Zach Wilson back into the team. I can't do anything but bet CJ Stroud against them.
Good man, Sam. Good man. Don't mind Drew. And as he said, Drew's long shots have fallen off the cliff. Although very unlucky.
Yeah, no, I ran out of gas. Me and the Eagles defense just out of gas. Yeah.
Colts at Bengals. Judah, take it away. I mean, again, both these teams played an insane games.
Famous last words, but I think this might be my my favorite best bet of the season so far.
Oh,
yeah, there is some weather here. I think that's probably overblown a bit. Right now, the latest projection is like 10 to 15 mile per hour winds and maybe some light rain. I don't think rain really makes much of a difference. If anything, probably helps the offense. But all the reasons Drew kind of liked the Bengals, which is that this is a pretty bad Colts defense. This is a really bad Bengals defense. And both of these offenses can score. They're add in the fact that Gardner Minshew is a turnover machine. That's going to kind of push the totals here. On short fields, all these sorts of things. But ultimately, just like these are two bottom defenses and probably top defenses. I would make this total in a neutral weather game, maybe 7 or 8 points higher. I really, truly don't understand this price unless like there is some severe weather overreaction here. Like clearly, Jake Browning is going to be able to move the ball. I don't think he's going to be the same quarterback, we saw against the Jaguars, but he's not some massive downgrade. The Colts play all of these games to the overs. I absolutely love this spot here for over 39.
Yeah, I love that case, Judah. It's my favorite, one of your best bet cases of the year, if that's any good to you, Judah. So it aligns with you. And Drew, I think Drew just wakes up. He's on the Ram way and he goes, "What will I do for best bet?" Thinks about it for 5 seconds and just puts in the Rams and the Doc. So am I wrong, Drew, or am I in a range?
Well, this was I could have filled this one out last week. Yeah.
You mentioned
I was hoping for 7.5. Ultimately, I don't think it's going to matter. Rams +7 for me, best bet, and a little bit of selling Ravens, a little bit of buying Rams, but yeah, the Rams right now, buying their offense, buying their defense, and just in general, would like to see the what exactly the Ravens have up their sleeve to coming off the bye here to win with margin. Don't exactly know that this, in the overall fabric of things, like, yeah, the Ravens need a win. The Ravens need they're trying to get the 1 seed with a lead against the likes of the the Chargers and the Bengals. They went for the jugular. They continued to try to score. So, there's definitely scope here for the Rams to lose by margin, but I think they're going to be in this one to the end, and I could see an upset. So Rams +7.
My favorite thing the whole podcast was discovering the Chargers and Vikings were involved in probably one of the highest totals, at least for the Chargers. Anyway, we've fallen off.
I'm 99% sure that was the highest closing total of the year.
I'm so pissed off with them. I actually tried to put them in the running order, but nobody had a bet. Unfortunately, Broncos at Chargers. So we'll leave that off. The Chargers have been a disgrace this year.
No, that should be a good thing as a Chargers fan. None of us wanted to fade the Chargers this week, even though they're laying 3 points to the Broncos.
There you go. Yeah. Every cloud. I'll still be back with my Chargers. My thanks to Drew, Judah, and Sam. Way over time, but I have to say this time of year, there's just too much to talk about. So we make no apologies for that. Insights.matchbook.com. Full recap. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Enjoy the weekend's football. Please gamble responsibly in the Matchbook Betting Exchange. And we will chat to you next week. Bye-bye.